Now let's look at another example. This one, I again want to identify my degree first, and I see that 4 is my biggest exponent. So we have a 4 for our degree, and that's an even number. That tells us that both arrows are pointing the same way, but which direction is that? We need our leading coefficient for that, which is just the implied 1, and that's positive. So that means that both of our arrows are going up because positive is the right arrow, and then our even degree tells us that the left arrow has to go the same way. So those are both going to be pointing up, but we want to get a little more accurate drawing than that, so we're going to create an XY chart again. As I said before, please feel free to use a calculator if you need to, if you don't want to try to keep these numbers in your head. All right, so I'm going to try 0 and see where that gets me. So my first 3 terms are going to go to 0 because if x is 0, the whole term is 0. So I know that I'm going to have a 4. All right, so we can go up or down from here. Let's go ahead and go to the right. So we'll do a 1 and see if we're going up or down for our y. Let's see. So with an x value of 1, I'm going to have this term is going to be 1 and negative 1. Those cancel to 0. This term will be negative 4, and this one will be positive 4, so that actually goes to 0 also. So at 1, I'm at 0. So again, 0, 4, and 1, 0. So I see that as I go from 0 and head to the right, I'm going down. I need to find where I start going back up. So let's take a look here. All right, so if I go positive 2, then I'm going to have 2 to the 4th power, which is 16, subtract 8 from it because 2 to the 3rd power is 8. So we're left with 8 after we do our first 2 terms. We're going to subtract 4 times a 2 squared, which is 4. So we're going to subtract 16. So we're left with a, let's see, negative 8 at that point. And then finally we add 4 to get us back up to negative 4. So at 2, we are at 4. Again, please feel free to put that entire thing in your calculator if you want to. So at the value of 2, sorry, this is a negative 4. At 2, we are at negative 4. All right, so we're still going down. We need to find some place where we continue to go up. So let's go ahead and start doing another point at 3. With an x value of 3, once we start plugging in, our numbers are going to start getting pretty big pretty quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to our Desmos scientific calculator and put that in just to show you how to put this string of numbers into the calculator. And I think you'll follow along a little bit better with these bigger numbers. All right, so I'm at desmos.com/scientific, and I'm going to put in my 3 for x in that equation. So the first thing I had was an x to the 4th, so I'm going to say 3 to the 4th. I'm putting the 3 in parentheses. It's a little bit redundant when the number is positive, but when the number is negative, it becomes super important to use parentheses around the number you're plugging in for x. So I'm going to say minus a 3 in parentheses again, and that's raised to the 3rd power. And then continuing, I had a negative 4 times x squared, so 3 squared. And then finally, I had plus 4. And so total, that tells me over here on the right-hand side that I get 22. Let's take that back and plug it in. That's going to actually be off of our graph, but we're going to get an idea of where the graph is headed. Back over here, we can say that at 3, we're at 22. So at 3, we're way up here somewhere. We know we're headed towards infinity, and that's where it starts. We know that by the time we get to 3, we are headed up. So now we can stop on the right-hand side and move to the left-hand side. I'm going to go to a -1, and if you plug those all in, you should get a value of 2, and at -2, you're going to get a 12. So use your calculator or your brain, confirm those, and make sure that you are convinced that that's what you're going to get. So at -1, I'm going to plot a +2, and at a value of -2, I'm going to be up at a +12. Well, that's also off of my graph, because my graph only goes, I think, to 10. So we know that by the time we hit a value of 2, we are headed up towards positive infinity. So now let's use those up arrows and these points to do the best job we can of graphing this polynomial. So I know that I come down here, but by the time I get to the next number at 0, I'm back up. All right, and then somewhere between here and our next point, we are headed down, and we are continuing to head down, but then at some point before we get to a value of 3, we are headed back up again. So it looks something like that.